If you would, take your Bible tonight and go to the book of Judges, chapter number 3. Judges, chapter number 3 tonight. That's where we're at in our study through the book of Judges as we're kind of going through our Bible here. Of course, you remember as we've been preaching, it's been a little while since we've been in Judges. We didn't have Sunday night service last Sunday because of Father's Day, and we weren't here the Sunday before that, so it's been quite a little bit since we're in the book of Judges. But as we're looking at it, you need to remember where exactly we are in the text. Brother Barry, I promise I'm not building suspense here. I'm not going to drag it out. He asked me a minute ago, he said, are you going to get us there tonight, or are you going to build suspense and drag it out the whole service like you did this morning? I said, I'll do my best. But do remember here in the book of Judges, the Lord is about to set up some individuals to come in and help out the Israelites here, the Hebrew people. Now, they need help because they're wicked. That's just a simple way to put it. They're wicked. We're wicked. Everybody has wicked tendencies. We all have sin in our life. Let's just get over that tonight and get your little halo off your head and realize that when we go to judge all these individuals back then, we've done the exact same things in our life. And if we really want some help out of the Word of God, we've got to get to that point in time in our life where we realize that this whole book applies to us. It's not just the good parts, but it's the bad parts as well, because we can learn from them. I love when I get to learn from somebody else's mistakes, because it saves me the heartache, and maybe I can dodge some of them and not have to make them on my own and have to pay the price with my own self. So looking at them here tonight, their problem is laid out in chapter number 2. Now, we dealt with that quite a while back, a few weeks ago now. We begin to deal with the problem that they're going to have going forward, and it's the same problem that they have all throughout the book of Judges, it seems, and it has a lot to do with these little g gods, the gods of the people that are living around them. Now, the reason that these little g gods are still here is why? Because Joshua, in the tail end of the book of Joshua, in chapter 24, he tells them, choose this day whom you're going to serve. He's wanting them to say, I'm going to serve the Lord, and I'm going to serve the Lord right, and I'm going to be obedient to Him, and I'm going to do everything He tells me to do. And those people, they say, yeah, that sounds good. We're going to do that. But it don't last no time at all. It lasts no time at all before they forget everything that they said they were going to do. They forgot that they said that God was going to be their God, and all of a sudden they start to drift away. They start to get into some things they ought not do, and a lot of children of God are saved, and they get in the same boat. You see, we all start off on fire, do we not? We get saved by the grace of God, and we feel like we can charge hell with a water pistol. We feel like we can take on the devil himself. I've heard young Christians say, I wish I could get my hands on him, I'd give him a thing or two. I don't think they want no part of him, because I don't want no part of him, but I admire the tenacity. I'm admiring the fact that they were so fired up, and I believe if Christians could get back fired up how they were when they first got saved, our churches wouldn't be so dead. I feel like they might be alive a little bit if folks got excited about serving God again. But here they are. They have just come into their inheritance. Can you imagine this? Now, we know Abraham was promised this land in Genesis. We know that they end up in Egypt because of the famine, and Joseph takes care of them. We know that another Pharaoh shows up that don't know nothing about Joseph and what he had done, so they end up being slaves, do they not? How long were they slaves in the land of Egypt? 400 years. All right, I can already tell y'all sleeping tonight. I'm either having to jump up and down on some pews or start calling volunteers or something. Y'all better get women tonight. I'm going to start popping tricks up here. I ain't got many, all right, but I'll do whatever I can. 400 years, they're going to end up being slaves in Egypt, okay? And then after that, they finally get let out. Moses comes in. The Lord delivers His people out. They cross the Red Sea. They get into the land. They get to fighting. They clear a bunch of the land out. And now all of a sudden Joshua says, it's your land now. Can you imagine the happiness on their faces? Can you imagine how excited they are? We're finally claiming this land that has been told to us for years and years and years and years. Even when they were in the desert, we know they wandered 40 years. So 40 years, they've been waiting on this. A wicked generation died there in the wilderness, but the next ones that grew up, they were babies at the time. They were under 20 years old, so they've been waiting this whole time too. And now they have finally got to where they can claim their land, and they get in there. You would think that they're on fire for God, and they want to do everything God has for them to do. You would think that they're so excited that God just gave them this land that they'd say, yes, Lord, we'll do whatever. If somebody called me right now and they gave me a bunch of land, outside of going against my Bible, I'd do whatever they asked me to do. I'm just telling you how it is tonight. If they give me something, I'm going to be accepting of it, and I'm going to be glad. If somebody gives me a Christmas present, I'm not going to sit there and be like, no, I didn't want that. I'm going to say thank you. I'm going to be excited because somebody gave me something. Now the darling Son of God, Jesus Christ, has done a lot for us in our lives. He has given us eternity. He's given us a home in heaven, but we seem to have forgotten what He gave us. We seem to not care about it no more. We seem to have gotten to the point to where it's just old news. And we ain't studied it no more, and we have lost our joy. We've lost our excitement on that. I don't want to be that way. I want to be excited. I don't want to get over what Jesus did for me. These Israelites here, it seems that they have gotten over what God has done for them and what God has given them. And we know here in the text, in chapter 2, verse number 3, the tail end of that, I want to read one thing, and I'll actually get into the chapter I'm preaching. We dealt with this a few weeks ago, and what's the Bible say? Wherefore I also said, I will not drive them out from before you, but they shall be as thorns in your sides, check this out, and their gods, little g gods, shall be a snare unto you. This is the reoccurring theme here in the book of Judges. Over and over and over again, it seems like they can't get away from these little g gods. They just cannot let them go. They just cannot say no to this, and I really don't understand why. I really don't understand why these little g gods have done absolutely nothing for them. They haven't helped them at all. All they have done is get them in trouble time and time and time again, and yet they keep wanting to go back to this snare of a little g god. It makes no sense to me. But then I have to take a moment and look at my life and say, you know the things that aren't doing you no good, and you keep going back to them too. And so do y'all. We all have those things in our life that we know are not going to do anything for us, and we keep trying it over and over and over again. So before we get high and mighty on them, let's just be honest tonight and realize that this text, it might be thousands of years old, dealing with the judges of Israel, but we can apply it to us here tonight. Okay? I want to look at some things in Judges chapter number 3. Lord willing, this will be the last message before we actually get into one of these judges. The characters that everybody's been waiting to get a part of. This is the last setup message. This is the last suspense message, Brother Barry. And then we'll see if we can't get into some actual judges tonight. Or, next Sunday night. But Judges chapter number 3, verse number 1, the Bible says this. Now these are the nations which the Lord left to prove Israel by them, even as many of Israel as had not known all the wars of Canaan. Only that the generations of the children of Israel might know to teach them war, at the least such as before knew nothing thereof. Namely 5 lords of the Philistines, and all the Canaanites, and the Sidonians, and the Hivites, that dwelt in Mount Lebanon, from Mount Beharim, under the entering in of Hamath. And they were to prove Israel by them, to know whether they would hearken unto the commandments of the Lord, which He commanded their fathers by the hand of Moses. And the children of Israel dwelt among the Canaanites, the Hittites, Amorites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, the Jebusites, and all the rest of them parasites in that land. And they took their daughters to be their wives, and gave their daughters to their sons, and served their gods. Here we go again. You would think they would have had enough of this by now, but it seems that they just cannot get enough of sin and disaster in their lives. I don't know about you, but when I try something and it blows up in my face, I typically don't like trying it again. I typically don't want to mess with it again because I'm worried about it. I had a buddy when I was in high school and actually going up into college, and he got the bright idea that he wanted to build an AR-15. I'm on board. I love it. I think it's a wonderful idea. I built one myself. I enjoyed it. I don't know if I was going to stay or not, but I enjoyed building that AR-15. But we got there, and he was helping me put it together because he had the armor's wrench and all the tools. He had all the stuff. We're putting that dude together, and we're about to go outside and shoot it. And right when I put it up to my face, his daddy hollered over there and said, "Hey, did you tell me about the first one you built and how it blew up when you shot it?" And immediately I'm like, I don't know if I want to shoot this thing or not anymore. I don't know if I want anything to do with it. So what did I do? I went over to the corner of the building, and I stuck my arm around the corner of the building, and I did like this number here, and I pulled the trigger because I was worried that dude was going to blow up. Now, him, on the other hand, he had one blow up, supposedly. I found out later they were joking with me. But had that thing blown up, guess what I wouldn't do no more? I wouldn't shoot it again. I wouldn't deal with it again. You would think here in the text that after this blew up in their face, and this ain't the first time, by the way, after this blew up in their face has been happening all the way since Exodus 32 with the golden calf on Sinai, you would think after a little g God blew up in their face that they would stay away from that mess, but they can't seem to do it, and here we go again. Now, Why did God send judges to help the Israelite people? Why did he send them? They mess up, they get in trouble, they can't get out on their own. God takes pity on them. They cry out of affliction. God says, fine, I'll go and I'll bail you out once again. And then they get bailed out and they do good. And then guess what? We go right back into it again. And God, oh my goodness, it's so awful, it's so terrible. He takes pity on them. He sends another judge. He pulls them out of that affliction again. It's the same thing that he has done for us in our rotten selves ever since we got saved. I had a preacher one time, I've heard it many times, many preachers say, the Lord saved me so that he can save me and keep saving me and keep saving me. They're not talking about salvation experiences over and over and over again. They're saying you got saved, you got salvation, but he's continuing to save us from ourselves. He's continuing to save us from our own bad decisions, our own mistakes, our own issues, our own shortcomings. He's continuing to do that, and that's what these judges are doing here in the text. But I want to focus in on these first 6 verses here and deal with some things, simply titled this tonight, What's Left to Prove You? What is left to prove you? Now, he said that these nations were left to prove the children of Israel. What does that word prove mean? It's meant to try them. It's meant to grow them. It's meant to test them, okay? He has left this occasion here, these people, these nations, in order to use them to help the children of Israel. Help them? They're going to fight them. They're going to kill some of the Israelites, and you say they're there to help? They are. They are there to help. And I'll prove it to you here in the text in just a moment. But you'll find that he's got a lot in store with this. These nations that are left are not only part of their punishment, but they're part of the wisdom of God and how he's going to use them. I'm going to show you tonight how he is going to use a bad thing for them to help them in the long run. I don't like bad things in my life. I don't like when I have bad days and bad nights and bad times. I don't like when I get phone calls and something bad has happened. But I have learned through the bad times in my life, a lot of times God has a way of helping me and training me and teaching me and bringing me closer unto him. I want you to go back and look at your life. When were you closest to God? When you're up on the mountaintop, or when you're flat on your back and rock bottom and you need somebody to help you out? It's when you're on your back. I heard a preacher say one time, sometimes you got to flip a pig on his back to make him look up. Yeah. Sometimes you got to flip me on my back to make me look up. Sometimes when things are going too good for me, I got this attitude and I'm running right along. I'm doing everything just fine. I don't need no help from nobody. And then all of a sudden something hits in my life and God reminds me that I still need him. God reminds me that I got as far as I did because of him. And if I want to get any farther, it'll be because of him. I believe there's some things you can see here in the text. There's some past mistakes that are going to set this whole deal up. It seems to be in our topic for quite some time, and it's the theme of Joshua, how that they have gone in to fight and clear out the people in this land, but they failed to get rid of everything that they were supposed to get rid of in the land. They didn't get rid of all of the people. They didn't get rid of the altars. They didn't get rid of the little g gods. They didn't get rid of everything that they were supposed to. They can't claim victory or claim any more of the land that God gave them because they've handicapped themselves by leaving that stuff there. I made the statement a little while back. The Israel that we know today, the Israel that is in the back of your Bible as the little map, the little nations they have, is not all the land that God promised them, right? He promised them from the Nile River in Egypt all the way to Euphrates. You go back and you look at it, there's a lot of land there that they have never had. Why did they not have it? Because God told them to clear the people out of the land, and they didn't do it. And what did God say? I will no more drive the people out. He said, if you'd have listened, you could have had more. If you'd have listened and done what I told you to do, you could have had more victory. You could have had more land. You could have had more blessings. You could have had more. I believe in the Lord is trying to show us some things tonight. If we'll get to the point where we're listening and doing what he tells us to do, we can have more. We can have more of what he's got for us. We can have more answered prayer. We can have more family members saved by the grace of God. We can have more great church services. We can have more tonight, but it's going to take us doing more to get more. How's that saying go? I've never had to worry about it because it don't apply to me. But people say you got to have money to make money. I ain't never had money, so I don't guess I'm ever going to make no money. But people say you got to have money to make money. How about this? Let me put it in our terms tonight. You got to do something for God in order for God to do something for you. Now, the gift of salvation is free. But God don't reward you for doing nothing. Dad used to always tell me when we were growing up, me and Trey, we would do something. We would mow the grass, or weed eat, or we'd take the trash out, or we help Mama clean the house. We'd do something like that was supposed to be a help to Dad and Mom. And we'd go up and we'd say, hey, I did this. And we were expecting Dad to pat us on the back, tell us good job, a little bit of money to help out for what we did would have been a blessing too. But he always looked at us and he said, why should I reward you for doing what you already should be doing? And at the time, it made me so mad. It just burnt me up, Mr. Tim. It just fired me up because I'm sitting there thinking, my goodness, I could have got the exact same thing for sitting there doing nothing. That's right. Christians, it's the same way. We can sit here and we can do nothing, and when we expect God to do something big for us, it probably ain't coming. Or we can show up and we can do something for Him, and we can labor and we can work and we can sing and we can pray and we can study and we can do all the things that we have in our ability to do. We can be faithful. We can do all of these things, and God will show up and He will bless that mightily. Think about this. The children of Israel, when they were claiming land, how did they claim Jericho? They went and fought Jericho, and they got Jericho. How did they get Ai? They went and fought Ai, and then they got Ai. How did they get Gibeon? Well, the Gibeonites made a league with them, and then they got Gibeon. How did they claim the next town? They went and fought the next town. How did they claim the one after that? They went and fought the next one. How about you in your Christian life? How are you going to claim victory in your Christian life? You know what it's going to take? You got to fight that challenge. You'll claim that victory. You got to fight the next challenge. You'll claim that victory. You got to fight that laziness. You'll claim that victory. You got to fight that study habit, and then you can have that victory. You got to fight the fact that you're not faithful to church. Then you can have that victory. You see, these victories do not come without work. I remember when I was playing baseball, our scoreboard at North Pontotoc, it had inning by inning. So it had 9 innings. We only played 7 if we did right. Most of the time we only played 3 or 5 because we run-rolled a bunch of people that year. We had a good season. We really did. We went like 26-6 or 7 or something like that. Had a great season, and if we won by a lot, it seemed like. But each one of those innings, it would pop up a score for the good guys and the bad guys. And Coach Anthony used to always say at practice, look up there at that scoreboard. Each one of those innings is a new battle. If you win each inning, you're going to win the ball game. You know how you win your Christian life? You win each inning. You beat each challenge. You succeed and get each victory on each challenge, each problem that pops up in your life. That's how you're going to win. But these people here, these Israelites, they quit fighting, and because they quit fighting, guess what? They quit winning victories. They quit expanding. They quit getting better. Their advancement is tied to what? Their obedience to God. Christian, you want to know what your advancement is tied to? Your obedience to God. We've had people, and I've had youth kids pray this and say this and ask me this, and they'll say something along the lines of, I just want to be a better, stronger Christian. Okay? That's great. That's a wonderful goal. I want that for you too. Now, how you going to get it? We don't know how we're going to do it. If I want to work out, yeah, like that's happening. If I want to work out, and I want to try to lose weight, and I try to get in shape again, I used to be at one point in time, not no more. But if I want to get back to that, I can't just go to the gym and stare at those weights and say, I'm going to lift that, and all of a sudden the fat just fall off and the muscles pop up. It don't work that way. I have to go and I have to do sets and I have to do work and I have to put the exercise and the work into that thing in order to get any better. If you want to be stronger in your Christian life, it's going to take work. It's going to take effort. You're going to have to do some things that ain't real fun, that ain't really easy if you want to advance. See, what was their problem? Their problem was they got complacent, they got lazy, they got comfortable with where they were, and now they don't see the problem. If you showed up to work one day and your boss said, congratulations, you got a bonus of $100. And then he says, you could have got $1,000, but you didn't work hard. What you going to do next year? You're going to work hard because you want your $1,000 bonus. The children of Israel, they could have had so much more, but they didn't want to put the work in. Christians today, they could have so much more. Churches could be so much better, but nobody wants to put the work in. They want to get complacent. They want to get lazy. They get comfortable with where they are, and they just stay there. And then they want to look around and say, I wish our church would grow. I wish God would do something big in my life. And I wonder if God's sitting in heaven saying, I wish you'd do anything. I wish you'd get up and do anything at all. I wish you would work. I wish you would labor. I wish you would try just a little bit. That's what's happening to the children of Israel. You see, they've allowed some things in their country, some mistakes in their country to stay there, and they haven't got rid of it, and it is going to bite them in the butt. You see, sin has a way of becoming more accepted over time. I remember when we were growing up and we would go to the mall. And I remember we would see some people that you would just think were the worst people on the face of the earth just back then. Okay, humor me, all right? I understand God loves everybody. I get every bit of that. I'm not saying He don't tonight. But I remember being little. And we're talking, I'm going to be 30, so we're talking like 20 years ago. Sometimes maybe a little longer than that. But I remember going to the mall, and you would see guys that had earrings in their nose and their ears and their eyebrows. I remember the first time I saw a goth person. All black, the chains on them, all that stuff. And I know you're not supposed to stare, but I stared. I'm telling you, I had my mouth wide open, and I'm drugging on Mama's shoulder. I'm like, what? Did you see this? Like, what is this? Because it was so taboo to me. I never knew that even existed. And we got a little closer to that person, and this is weird. I still don't understand this today. He had a safety pin through his cheek and pinned together. It says New Piercing. I don't know. I didn't know piercings were that expensive. If he wanted somebody to pierce him, I'd have shoved them through his face. That'd have been just fine. Now, I'd have done it for free. But no, I saw this, and I'm sitting there thinking, it's so weird, it's so taboo, it's so different. But now, we got people running around with fox masks on, acting like they're a fox. We got people at Corinth High School that think they're a kitten or a cat, and they have a litter box in the janitor's closet. That's serious, by the way. That is a real thing. I ain't making that up. They have a litter box in the closet that the janitor has to clean up for them. I'd quit. Mr. Tim, I couldn't do it. I'd quit. On the way out the door, I'd hand her the scoop and say, clean up after your own self, goofball. I don't know what's wrong with you. But did we ever think that we were going to get to that point in time in our lives? You go back and look at where things are now and how crazy it's gotten, and you look back how it used to be. Now we look at all of these different lifestyles and the 47 million genders. By the way, I've never understood this. Their whole logo is LGBTQ plus I, whatever, all that through. What does the B stand for? Somebody help me out. Bisexual. What does bi mean? Two. Two genders. The very answer to their whole argument and their problem is in their own name, and they're too dumb to realize it. Have you ever thought about that? Have you ever realized that? We are in a goofy, messed up place in the world that we live in, and it has gotten to the point where we don't even bat an eye at it. And here's the reason why we don't bat an eye. Let me give it to you. You've heard it before. Well, God loves everybody. He does. He absolutely does love everybody, but you know what God hates? Sin. The politically correct Christian is killing churches. Because they're too scared to stand up and say, God don't like that, and tell them to quit, and tell them that they're living in sin. Instead, they want to say, well, I've got to be accepting and turn the other cheek and show compassion. You do. To the person, but not the sin. You heard that saying? Hate the sin, not the sinner. Well, is that what Jesus did? Yeah. What is one of his most famous stories or accounts that they like to use? Well, Jesus, they caught that woman in the very act of adultery and brought her to him, and he just let her go. According to the law, she should have been stoned. Yeah, he did just let her go. He had compassion on her, but what else did he say? He said, go and sin no more. You know what the problem was? He wasn't mad at her. He was mad at the sin she committed. And he said, I'm not going to stand for that sin anymore, but I'll love you in spite of it. The children of Israel here, they've just got to the point where they let everything go. They're not fighting nothing anymore. They're not getting those little G gods out of their land. They're not tearing down the altars. They're not tearing down those high places and those groves. Gideon's going to take care of a lot of that stuff. We'll get to him in a couple months, depending on how much suspense I want to build. But we'll get to him. He's going to deal with those things. But they haven't. They haven't done it at all. And we haven't done it either. We've let so much stuff creep in under the guise of being accepting and welcoming. You got to be. Of the person, but not the sin. Okay? We cannot get so light and easy on sin to where people think there's nothing wrong with it anymore. Because that's what's happening. That is what's happening right now. I remember growing up, small things, man, little tiny things that people are doing now, and if we looked at it, we would say, well, at least that's all they got wrong. At least that's the only thing that they've got wrong. Well, back then, that was a big deal to us. I told you 20-some years ago when I saw that guy that had piercings everywhere in his face. That was just taboo. That blew my mind. But now, I'm just glad that dude knows he's a dude. It's gotten that bad. We have gotten to that point, and why is it that way? Because we have gotten so used to it, and we've gotten so accepting of it. And we've gotten so complacent and comfy with it that it don't bother us no more. The same thing the children of Israel have done with the little g gods. Don't tell me that the whole Bible don't apply to us, because this is right where we're at today. We have gotten too used to it. Our past mistakes of getting light on this stuff. He says we need to hate the sin, not the sinner, but don't let them stay in that sin. They let one stay in the land, and then there was another group of people, and another group of people, and another group of people. And then what did the Bible say? I preached all this in chapters 1 and 2 about how that they dwelt among the Canaanites. And they dwelt among all these people. They didn't even kick them off their land. They let them stay there. They bunked up with them. They became friends with them. And next thing you know, they're acting just like them. What's that saying? If you lay down with a dog with fleas, you're going to get fleas too? That's what they have done here in the text. It's rubbing off on them, and it's causing them trouble. Human nature craves common ground. It really does. And we'll get to the point where we'll just accept a little bit, and then we'll accept a little bit more, and a little bit more, and a little bit more, all because we don't want to confront nobody about nothing. And then it blows up in our face because we end up going so far. Give the devil an inch, he takes a mile. But not only do you see their past mistakes of leaving this in the land, but you'll find that there was some placed snares as well. I read you verse number 3 there of chapter 2, where it talks about these little g gods are going to be a snare unto them. Over and over again, they have been warned about worshiping other gods. But yet, here they are. Here they are once again. We're right back in that same boat that we have been in. You see, this snare has gotten them over and over and over again, but they don't seem to be able to break free from it. And I just wonder tonight, I made this statement the last time I preached this, about you place a snare in a place where you know that animal is going. That snare was placed there because God knew they were going to go back to little g gods. And while I was placing or asking you where God would place that snare in your life, what does He know that you're going to go back to? What does He know that I'm going to go back to? What's still holding us tonight? What is it that we just can't seem to break? Before we get high and mighty on them, let's just be honest and realize that we've fallen into our snares time and time again. There's plenty of things that have stolen our attention from God, because that's what these little g gods have done. Why was God mad about little g gods? What's the first commandment? Thou shalt have no other God besides me. You'll have nothing else that's going to take your attention off of me, because He's a jealous God. But we've had so many things that have jumped up and taken our attention from God. Work takes our attention from God. It does. I'm not against work. I work 2 full-time jobs now. I ain't against work. I think you ought to work. If you ain't working, I think you're lazy and you go get a job. I think half these goofballs that are protesting in the street, if they had a job, they wouldn't have time or energy to go out and raise all the cane that they're raising. Just my point. That's where I'm at on it. But I'm trying to tell you, I'm not against work here, but work cannot get in the way of what God has for you. Because if work is getting in the way of what God has for you, then you're going backwards. You're getting away from it. I understand we have work schedules. Sometimes we can't help that. I'm not mad about that. I'm not upset about that. But if you ever get to the point where you would rather be at work than at church, we have a problem. We have a problem. We have an issue. We have some things that should not be happening. It has got to the point to where a lot of people use work as an excuse. There's a fellow that used to work with us at MDOT. I have no idea how the math on this works out, but he didn't make a whole lot of money with us. He didn't make a whole lot of money with us because he didn't do a very good job of what we needed him to do, so he didn't get paid very much. But he got a second job. And that second job, he worked in Tupelo, and it started at 4 o'clock. The problem is we don't end our work day until 4:30. There's a problem here. He does it 2 days a week. He cleared it, since we're on a 4-day work schedule, he cleared it with the higher-ups that he could work on Friday to make up the time that he was going to miss on Tuesdays and Thursdays when he had to leave early. I don't care. It's fine and dandy. I'm easy to get along with. But you need to be in Tupelo by 4 o'clock. I don't understand why you got to leave work in New Albany at 12. That math ain't mathing. It ain't working. It don't take 4 hours to drive to Tupelo. Common Core math? Yeah, it's about right. No, I believe I could take that 4 hours. I left at 12. I could go home, I could shower, take a 3-hour nap, and still make it back to Tupelo by 4 o'clock. You know what he was doing? He was using that job as an excuse to get away from his job at MDOT. People will use anything as an excuse to get out of the house of God. You know, now it's not let me work everything around. I'll come to church if I'm dirty, if I'm stinky, just because I need to be there. Now all of a sudden it's, well, I got this sunburn at the lake all day Saturday, and now I just can't bear to sit on the pew. But you can bear to sit in your recliner at the house. Let me tell you a statistic real quick. When I was preaching in Pontotoc, that little church that I was kind of the interim pastor for 2 years, I made the statement one time that I would venture to say that there was more drownings that took place on Sunday than any other day of the week. It just so happened that Pontotoc's coroner was one of the members of that church. She came up to me the next week. She said, you know, you said that, and I started thinking back. I've worked 17 drownings, and 15 of them were on a Sunday. I'm not saying that if they were in church it wouldn't happen, but it's kind of hard to drown when you're sitting on the pew. But we'll come up with excuses to get us out of the house of God. And then we want to be upset when God don't do nothing for us. I've often said, what if God treated us the way that we treat Him? We'd be in a sorry state, would we not? They've let these little g gods get in the way. We let work get in the way. We let our hobbies get in the way. Do I need to get on fishing and hunting on Sundays? Okay. Y'all know where I stand on it. I'm not against what you do on Sunday morning as long as you're here. I'm not against what you do on lunchtime around Sunday as long as you're here. But as your pastor, I have to remind you that Sunday is the Lord's Day and we're having church here. Sunday school starts at 10. Worship starts at 11 roundabout, 10:45 on the sign, but it's been 11 here lately. Sunday night we start at 5 and Wednesday we start at 7. We have services 3 times a week here. That gives you many other days that you can go and do all your hobbies to keep from using them as an excuse of why you can't do nothing for God. I didn't intend to go on this rabbit trail, but while I'm here, let me kick the bushes and make some more run. You see, we let work get in the way. We let hobbies get in the way. How about this? We let Hollywood get in the way. Because we're too busy trying to catch up with a new TV series and the new show and the new newscast, and instead we'll sit there in that chair, and I've been a victim of it too, and we'll look up and we'll realize we're 15 minutes late for church because we were too caught up in everything else. How about this? We all love those shows that come out and everybody talks about how wonderful they are, and there's a certain day and a certain time that they always come out, and it's amazing to me that we can work our entire week to where we're always there in time to watch that show live when it comes on. But we can't work our schedule out where we can be at church. When me and Trey were still living at the house years ago, this is when that show The Voice came out. Okay? I know about one of the first couple seasons of The Voice. We loved it. It's a great show. We loved the blind auditions. It was just neat to us. It was a cool idea. And Mama wanted us to have some family time. Memory serves, that show came on at 7 o'clock every Monday. So guess what? No matter how busy our schedules were, 7 o'clock on Monday, Mama had supper ready. We all had our plates, and we were sitting there. We was going to watch The Voice. We didn't miss it. That was back before we had, DVR. That was back before we could record anything. If we missed it, we just missed it. So we didn't miss it. Let me tell you something. We might have Facebook Live here, but that don't mean we need to be missing all the time because we can go back and watch it. You need to be here. The Bible says, forsake not the assembling of yourselves. It's important to be here. It's important to be involved. It's important to get rid of some of these little G gods in our life that we like to use an excuse that keep us away from the big G God. And that's what we got. I hope I'm preaching to the choir tonight. I hope I'm not on anybody's toes. I hope I'm not hurting no feelings, because that's not my intention tonight. My intention tonight is to keep us from making the same mistakes that somebody else has already made. Because what's going to happen is we're going to make all of these excuses, and we're going to look up when our kids are out of the house and we're living in a broken home with wayward children, and we're going to wonder what happened and what went wrong. Why didn't that preacher fix everything? You didn't even give him the chance. You wasn't even here. God, why did you allow this to happen in my life? God said everything. You wasn't even there. You put everything else above me, and you want to act surprised when something goes wrong? It made no sense. Let me give you this last one real quick. Oh, I'm getting close, I promise. We let work and hobbies and Hollywood and the things we want to keep up with, and how about this? We let laziness get in the way of us serving God. I'm just tired. I need to sleep in today. I was so tired this morning, I told Sue, I set my alarm for 6. Darden got up and climbed in the bed with us, and when she does that, I always snooze my alarm for a little while, because if she doesn't fall back to sleep, she pitches a fit when I get out of bed. So I got to wait for her to go to sleep so that I can sneak out of the bed so that I don't leave a mess for Sue there. But I needed to go and work and study some more on my sermon for this morning. Alarm goes off at 6. I reset that thing for 7 o'clock. Darden fell asleep. I got up at 7. I went and sat at my desk, and I sat there and I started to read over my notes, and I made like 2 or 3 lines, and I done laid my head back, and I'm just about out. I was so tired. I could not keep my eyes open. And then I said, no, I can't do this. I got to study. I got to read some. I got to work on this. And I started to read again on that thing. And I got to about the same spot, and I don't know if it's just boring reading or what, but I started to read, and I just kind of lost. I said, I can't do it. I said, I can't study. So I set my alarm for 7:30, laid my head down on the desk, and fell asleep like I was a kid in high school again. Because I was tired and I was wore out. But I could not let my laziness, because if I'd have had my way, I'd have called in sick, and one of y'all would have took care of service this morning, and I'd have gone and slept some more. But I couldn't let it happen, because I knew that y'all were here, and you're going to be spiritually hungry, and God has placed a call in my life to come and feed the flock. God has placed a call in your life to go and do some things for Him, and if you let your laziness and your own flesh get in the way, then we're no better than the children of Israel. And letting little G gods get in the way. Things have stolen our attention from God. It's amazing to me. There's always been 24 hours in the day ever since the beginning of this thing, but it seems like those 24 hours get shorter and shorter and shorter every year, does it not? I just don't have the time to sit and read my Bible like I used to. Well, it's not that your time and days got shorter, it's that we put something else in it. And most of the time, we're more concerned with keeping up with the things of this world than keeping up with what God has for us. That ain't a good recipe, y'all. That's something that's going to get us in trouble. But then there's some problems to prove. There was past mistakes, there was place snares, there's problems to prove. Problems that shouldn't be here anymore. You see, these people shouldn't be around anymore. The places that shouldn't be around, the high places that they had where they worshiped their gods, should not be there anymore. They should have been destroyed and taken down. The altars of incense that they had to serve their gods shouldn't be there anymore. The behaviors of worshiping those gods, their openness to sin and wickedness, should not have been there anymore. The adultery and their little G gods should not have been there anymore. The ignorance of what used to be and what God has told them that they have forgotten shouldn't be around anymore. They should have known that God told them not to worship any other gods before them and what was going to happen, and they've forgotten it. They should have remembered it. Relationships with these people shouldn't have been around. They should not have been unequally yoked with those people. By the way, on the topic of unequally yoked, that has absolutely nothing to do with race. It has everything to do with spiritually or unequally yoked. We just deal with that while I'm here. That's what it has to deal with. It has to deal with somebody that is for God getting with somebody that is against God, because it never works out. Never does. Never works. They have a lot of problems here in the text, things that they're trying to fight through and trying to work through, and if they'd have done their job in the get-go and got rid of it, their lives would have been so much better. Christians, I've told you today that they get so tore down and beat down and they act like they're defeated all the time. They might be defeated because they're fighting hell by the acre because they left this mess in their lives instead of getting rid of it. I saw a video the other day. It was called Ultimate Fighter or something like that. It was 5 guys on one side versus 5 guys on the other side. And it was a free-for-all. And they started fighting, and I don't know how well it worked out. But these 5 guys, they came and they began to fight one another. And when one of them got knocked out, now it's 5 on 4. And then they got the next one, and then it was 5 on 3, and then 5 on 2. By the end of it, the poor guy that was by himself was curled up on the ground in the fetal position. He had 4 different people kicking him, and another was back there taking pictures, it seemed like. It didn't seem very fair. Because he left so many enemies, his friends that were supposed to help him, he left so many people in the ring, he had no chance of winning that victory. We leave so much stuff in our Christian life that is against God and is a distraction and a handicap to us, and then we want to wonder why we can't win it. Allie, I don't know if you've ever wore any kind of weight. She grins every time I say her name because she don't know what I'm fixing to say. I don't know if you've ever wore ankle weights or a weighted vest or anything to train in when you're running. She hasn't, but a lot of guys that I knew running cross country, they would. They would wear that weighted vest or those ankle weights. And the theory was, I'm going to run with this during practice, and my body will get used to it. When the big race happens, I take that thing off, and I'm going to feel light as a feather, and I'm going to be able to go, and it's going to help me in my race. But I never saw any of them forget to take it off. Christians this day and time, we hold on to these weights. We let things hang around in our life, and then when it comes time to fight through a battle or something in our life that has gone horribly and terribly wrong, we leave that handicap in our life and want to figure out why things are so hard. Things are so hard because we have gotten out of the will of God and we're not doing what He's told us to do, and because of that, it is slowing us down. Hebrews chapter 12, let us run with patience the race that is set before us, looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith. Go back and read the rest of those verses. It says, set aside the weight that does so easily beset us. You know what he's saying? He's saying if you're going to win at this race called life, there's some things you ought not be trying to carry because it's going to weigh you down. It's going to slow you down. You know what slows us down? Anything that gets between us and God. Anything that keeps us from serving God. Whether it's people, whether it's things, whether it's a hobby, whether it's work, whatever it is, the things that keep us from serving God. They're slowing us down and they're hurting us. But I told you I was going to prove to you that God left this not only as a punishment for them, left those nations as a punishment, but He also left them as wisdom. I found this when I was studying this text today, and it really stuck out to me. Notice what it says in verse 2. Only that the generation of the children of Israel might know to teach them war. You know what's happening to these people right here that have inherited this land? You remember, go back to the book of Joshua there, the beginning of Judges. It said that the people served God all the days of Joshua and all the days of the elders after him. But when they died, they rose up another generation that knew not God or the works that He had done. Right? Y'all remember that? You remember those verses? Guess what else they had never known? War. They had never fought. The fighting ended when Joshua and those elders were still alive. They didn't know how to fight. They didn't know how to win any battles. God left these people here not only as a way to punish them for what they had done, but as a way to teach them how to fight through their battles as well. Can I bring it down to you here? How about this? Some lessons you have to learn the hard way. They have always had God every step of the way to lead and to fight for them, but they have pushed Him away, and now they think they can do it without Him, and guess what God has done? He's taken His hand off to let them learn the hard way. It's like when a parent tells their kid, don't touch the stove because it's hot, but then they don't listen, and if you're a great parent, you have this thought, fine, go ahead and touch it and see what happens. And they touch it, and they get burned, and guess what they don't ever do again? Touch that hot stove. You see, we have a habit in our lives of allowing things to stay in that shouldn't be there And then when we have to deal with these battles, we have to try to fight them on our own. And we often say, Lord, I feel like my prayers are they're just going unanswered. You're not hearing me. I try to study and I can't see anything. I don't have any desire to witness. My happiness is gone. But my battles are still here and they're getting harder and harder and harder. It might just be that we've left so much stuff in our life. God's left some battles for us to prove us, to try to teach us how to fight through these things. Is that not what He's done for them here in the text? He's left these battles to teach them how to fight, so when the next battle comes on, guess what they know how to do? They know how to fight. I made the statement earlier, and I'm getting done. I'm close, I promise. I made the statement a minute ago that I didn't learn how to pray when I was on top of the mountaintop. I learned how to pray when I was on rock bottom. I didn't learn how to study my Bible when everything was going great. I learned how to study my Bible when I needed a word from Him harder and worse than I needed anything else. I didn't learn how to get away from everything and separate myself out and get alone with God and commune with God until I needed Him to do something big in my life and I knew I had no other option. You see, God could have come by and He could have given me that whenever. He could have come by and answered my prayers whenever. He could have led me out of that trial whenever. But He didn't do it. Instead, He allowed me to get to the point where I realized that I was in my own way and I had to get some things out of my life if I ever wanted Him to do something big for me and give me those victories. I didn't learn that stuff in the easy battles. I didn't learn it when I was fighting with Him and everything was just breezy and easy. I learned it when there were some things that I left in my own life and He sent them back my way to prove me again. When He sent them back my way to make me fight through some of those things. Brother Easton, do you think God will really do that? Will He really let me go through some hard times? Oh, yeah. He'll let you go through some hard times. He'll let you go through some hard times so that you realize how good the good times are. He'll let you go through some hard times so that you'll learn how to pray, so when the next time comes around, you'll be able to make it through it. See, there's been some trials in my life that have come by, and that's where I've learned how to pray. That's where my life has advanced. That's where I've gotten closer to God. It's not how many videos I watch or sermons I listen to or songs that I sing. No, it's the times of my life where I've got problems, I've got mistakes, and I've had to get over myself, and I've had to humble myself, and I've said, Lord, I've made mistakes. Lord, I've got things that ought not be here, and I'm asking you to come and to help me through this. And He says, I've left them there to prove you, and now I know. What did He say? He said, I've left them, verse 1, to prove Israel by them, as many of Israel as had not known all the wars of Canaan. It even goes back to tell them in chapter number 2 over and over again that He left these people here to prove them on whether or not they would serve God. It tells them that chapter after chapter after chapter. I would venture to say tonight that a lot of problems that we go through and things that we struggle with and the hurts and the pains in our life that we have, they're left there not because the devil has sent them, but because we have left those in our own life, and we've got to deal with those and trust God to help us get through them, and it's not going to be easy. But those are the times, those are the trials that He has helped us and led us to. Through His own wisdom, He has left these people here so that He could teach them how to fight through the next one. It's amazing to think that God does things like that, is it not? That He would leave something that's going to make His people struggle in order to make them stronger. When we're raising our kids, a lot of times there's lessons that they've just got to learn the hard way. There's lessons they've just got to learn on their own, and we can tell them over and over and over again, and they won't get it until they've lived it. There's a lot of Christian lessons today that we need to learn. But no matter how many times somebody tells us over and over and over again to not do it, to get away from that, to get those things out of our life, sometimes we just got to learn them on our own. And I believe that's when those trials and those troubles come by. I've had so many Christians tell me, ladies, y'all want to come on the piano? I've had so many people tell me, Brother Easton, it seems like every time I'm trying to do right and do good, that some trial comes my way, and they just want to get bitter at God, and they want to give up, and they want to quit. It might not be that God's mad at them or God's hurting them. It might be that God's trying to make them a bit stronger. And a lot of times they don't want to admit that the problem they're fighting is there because they set it up. Because they left it there in their life. Ladies, y'all play whenever you're ready. Let's all stand tonight.